Welcome to everybody to the AGM. I'm going to propose that we take the notice convening the meeting as read and get straight on into the meat of the session. Obviously, the meeting is being held virtually, but the overall format and agenda remain the same as in previous years. So there will be a requirement to both second and agree all the various different motions, which we will carry on through. First on the agenda is the auditor's report, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome Alistair Duke from PKF Littlejohn and ask you, Alistair, please to read out a shortened version of the auditor's report. Thank you.
Within the starting on page 6 of financial statements, our audit report, the key element which is right at the very beginning under opinion, which states that, in our opinion, the consolidated financial statements, that they give a true and fair view of the state of the company's affairs at the 30th, that the financial statements have been prepared in accordance with the requirements of the Companies Act 2000. In our report, are all in line with expectations.
Yeah, sorry about that being slightly disjointed, but everybody I hope has had a chance to read the report. So if there are any questions, please could you raise them now? Well, thank you very much indeed, Alistair, for concluding that so quickly and efficiently. The report of the board was also circulated with a notice of the AGM, and this sets out the business of the Federation and provides a brief review of what we've been doing in the last year during 2020. Clearly, this has not been a normal year of normal business, obviously significantly disrupted by the impact of COVID-19. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that at the end of all of the proceedings. However, I think it is worth highlighting in the report of the board some of the key achievements during the year. We have been very successful in leading the property sector's response to a range of policy issues emerging from the pandemic. We published in November the first edition of a property sector social impact report, which highlighted and reaffirmed the sector's commitment to be a force for good in local communities. We adapted quickly to new ways of working, and the team delivered a program of 27 digital events that reached an audience of more than 5,000 people, as well as launching a new website, the member portal, which I hope you all have been using, and learned very quickly to provide new ways to engage with and deliver value to our members. All of this we will talk about a little bit more at the end of the formal proceedings, as I say. But if anyone has any questions or observations on the report of the directors, I'd be grateful if you could raise them now. Otherwise, I propose that the report is received and adopted, and I'd be grateful for someone to second that motion, please. Toby, thank you very much. Any questions or objections to adopting the report? None, thank you very much. So we can record that that report has been received and adopted. Thank you. So the third item of the agenda is to call on Alan Leibovich, our Honorary Treasurer, to present the accounts. Over to you, Alan.
Thanks, David. We have, as usual, two sets of accounts to adopt at this AGM. The first set is the accounts for the BPF, into which are consolidated the accounts for what we call BPF Commercial. So just dealing with the consolidated accounts, I'm very pleased to report that we made a small surplus for the year, just under 8,000, but that was made against a deficit budget which had been set for the year. And bearing in mind the year that we had, as David has just referred to, I think it's a pretty outstanding result for the BPF. The outturn from operations was still a deficit, but even there a very much reduced deficit to that which we had budgeted pre-COVID era. As far as the balance sheet goes, I'm pleased to say that our members' funds have increased slightly from the previous year. They stand at just under 3.3 million, which puts us into a pretty healthy position as a membership organization. I won't go through the BPF commercial accounts other than to say that these show a substantial loss, but of course that loss is consolidated, as I said before, into the BPF accounts. The loss as a result of a complete close down of our usual BPF events during the year, for which BPFC is set up and which usually shows a very nice surplus. So let's hope that we get back to a position where we can start having events again. So before I propose for adoption, any questions or comments on the accounts? I'm sure that they are available to all members. Well, on that basis, I would like to propose that the meeting adopts these two sets of accounts. If I could have a seconder. Thanks, Bill. Thanks, Jessica. Okay, David, that deals with that.
Thank you very much. So no questions or objections to the adoption of the accounts. Excellent. So we could declare that those have been received and adopted. And to thank Alistair very much for preparation and for appearing today to explain them for us. Thanks very much indeed, Alistair. Appreciate it.
Okay, should I go on to the next item, David?
Yes, please, Alan.
Which is simply to propose the reappointment of PKF Littlejohn. They've been our auditors for some time. In fact, Alistair has been our audit partner for some time. He's still within that period, which the guidance covers in respect of an audit partner providing services to a client. They do a very good job for us, and I would like to propose their reappointment for the next year. Comments or questions on that? Oh, Jonathan, thank you. I presume that you were seconding my proposal. So, David, that looks as though... just before I hand back to you, if I can just also publicly express my thanks to Jon and Terry, who's not at the meeting, who's the finance manager at the BPF, for marshalling the accounts and the audit in a very efficient and effective way this year. So thanks very much for that.
Indeed, yes. Thanks from all the board for that work. And if there are no questions or objections to the reappointment of PKF Littlejohn, I can declare that that proposal is agreed. So thank you very much indeed for that. And normally this would be the conclusion of the formal business of the AGM, but there is one further matter to report to members. This time last year, Helen handed over the presidency to myself, and in a normal year, I would have been handing it over to Guy Granger as the incoming president. But members will recall that no JVP appointment was made last year due to the extraordinary circumstances that we've all found ourselves in. So as a result of that, the board has agreed that I will remain as BPF president until the end of 2021. Guy will then take over as president on the 1st of January and will also serve an 18-month term through to July 2023. And I'm delighted to announce that Mark Allen has agreed to join the board as junior vice president, and Mark will step up to become VP next January and also serve an 18-month term in that capacity until July 2023, at which point he will then take over as president. And we will look to reinstate the normal progressive rotation next year onwards with the appointment of a new JVP at that point. This also means that Helen gets to be the immediate past president until the end of 2021. So thank you to all of those of you who have been part of this presidential team and for your service and indeed the offer to extend your service over this period of time to cope with these extraordinary circumstances. So that does conclude the formal business of the AGM. Last year, you got 2 speeches. This year, you're only going to get 1. But I am going to, if I can, take a few more moments of your time to reflect on the BPF's work over the last year and to look forward to some achievements and the next stages of what we're going to be doing over the next year or so. As I said, when I did speak to you as incoming president a year ago, I didn't think that I would be doing so again in 12 months, let alone that I would be doing it again on Zoom rather than in person. And whilst having the opportunity to raise a glass with many of you at the BPF's summer reception, hopefully we will be able to do that next time round. This is actually the second time in the BPF's history that we've held a virtual AGM, and the first since the middle of the last century that the presidential team has been extended, or the presidential term has been extended rather, as I explained a minute ago. Obviously, COVID-19 has impacted on all of us in a far more serious fashion than that, and is indeed continuing to cast a long shadow. I know that it's been a tough year for many of our members, both as companies and as individuals, but at last it does feel that we are approaching the end of the tunnel. Thanks to the success of the UK's vaccination regime, we should soon be able to open up so many of the facilities which have been locked down over the last 18 months. And I don't just mean nightclubs and pubs, but also, dare I say it, offices. And this will lead to the much awaited resurgence of life in city centres, which we all know are so essential to rebooting our economy. We can begin to look to the future, but at the same time, we mustn't forget what we have been through, nor will we neglect to learn the lessons from this time and continue to be aware of the long-term impact of the pandemic on every aspect of our lives and on our future businesses in real estate. So I want first and foremost, please, to thank all of you, our members, for your support for the BPF. As a board, we knew that 2021 would be a challenging year. And as Alan explained, we deliberately set out a very cautious budget at the beginning of that year. But as you have heard, in reality, we've been overwhelmed by the continuing support that you, the membership, have given us, with almost 100% of our existing subscriptions collected much earlier than in previous years. And as well, we've been able to welcome a raft of new memberships, taking us well beyond our budget predictions. This is going to give us an opportunity to invest in additional activities and additional resources on your behalf. And it is a great endorsement of the role that the BPF has and continues to play on behalf of the industry. It's been a really active year for the team on a wide range of issues. However, there is no doubt it's also been a frustrating period for commercial property in particular, with the rent moratorium still in place and no clear timescale for the legislation that had been announced to restrict them, to focus on where there is no argument about where they are needed most, the hardest hit hospitality and leisure businesses. Despite the BPF committing probably more resource to this issue than at any other recent times, against a background in which the politicians very early on took the decision to focus exclusively on jobs, we have been unable to move the government away from policies which assume that property owners cannot be trusted to behave well towards their tenants. The truth is, of course, that there are some bad landlords out there, just as there are some bad tenants. And there are indeed bad actors in every industry. The question we need to face up to is, why is it that our sector alone has been signaled out and legislated against? So as a board, we've therefore taken some time to reflect on this question, on how can we be seen as trustworthy partners and responsible stewards not only of our assets, but also of the communities and people's lives in which our assets sit, in order to tackle the challenges that both society and the real estate industry urgently need us to face up to. Unless we address this issue, the BPF cannot have the impact we need to have on what is a substantial policy agenda coming forward, with very far-reaching implications for the sector, from climate change to planning, to landlord and tenant legislation, to leasehold reform, amongst many other issues. The industry must set out its own agenda. It's our responsibility to make sure we change in line with the times and the changing perceptions of us as good corporate citizens and stewards of the built environment that underpins everybody's lives. As a board, we have reaffirmed our view that our top priority must be to tackle the reputational issue that we face in order to enhance the impact of the BPF on behalf of the industry. First and foremost, this is about our actions as individual businesses. Redefining real estate remains our framework for driving good practice and greater social impact across the sector, and we will continue to use it to both set a positive agenda for us all and also to be stronger in calling out bad practice and bad behaviours where we see them. We also need to respond to how the nature of government is changing, providing strong evidence, whether data or case study, to back our words is still essential, but it's also clear that it is not enough. We need to work harder to demonstrate our relevance to a political agenda driven by a much wider range of factors. And we need to connect to hearts and emotions as well as to heads and logic. As a board, we've therefore agreed to put resource behind working up a strategy for this from a holistic point of view, which we will share with you after the summer. But this also involves you as members engaging at every level with politicians to reinforce the messages that we share between ourselves with officers within the government as well. So a fundamental leg of our Redefining Real Estate initiative is also the creation of a more diverse and workforce and an environment that is inclusive of all parts of our communities. This is fundamental to tackling the myths and sometimes painful realities about how we are perceived. Our network for young in-service professionals, BPF Futures, has been an outstanding success since it began over 3 years ago. It continues to deliver a well-supported program of knowledge and events to its members, and the advisory board has been keen to develop further to achieve our aspiration, both to enable people to develop themselves and their careers to the fullest, and to assist more junior colleagues to help shape the industry's future. I'm therefore delighted today to announce the launch of the BPF Futures Launchpad. The BPF Futures Launchpad provides the platform for young in-service professionals to network and share knowledge with both their peers and with senior industry leaders. It also gives them the opportunity to have their say. The Launchpad has 4 key pillars. First of all, influencing, giving BPF Futures members the chance to help shape the built environment of the future. Second, learning, helping the BPF Futures members to understand the key issues facing the industry. Thirdly, mentoring, connecting BPF Futures members with senior leaders across the industry. And then finally, networking, enabling BPF Futures members to build relationships with your peers across the public and private sectors. I have myself signed up as a mentor in the new Launchpad mentoring scheme, and a number of my fellow board members have done so too. I personally see it very much as a two-way process and keen to learn from those coming new into the industry, as well as hopefully to pass on some of the things that I've learned. So I'm particularly pleased that the BPF Launchpad will create new opportunities for junior professionals to have a stronger voice in the BPF's policy work, including through a new BPF Futures Policy Congress, which, as with all our other BPF Futures initiatives, will be shaped by the network members themselves. I'm also able to announce today the rollout of BPF Futures into Scotland. I know that our new SPF chair, Kevin Robertson, is particularly passionate about engaging younger voices in our industry and supporting their development. And I'm delighted to see him give such a strong lead to make sure that our young professionals across Scotland are able to join the BPF Futures family and benefit from the range of activities on offer. So thank you very much for that, Kevin. You should have received an email today already, and please do look out for more details about the BPF Futures Launchpad with our updated BPF Futures website. It has a very distinctive new look and feel. This is just another great example of all the work that the team does, and I'd like to conclude with a few thank yous. The BPF's work and impact is made possible by the commitment of our members and by the BPF team. On behalf of all of the board, I would like to say special thanks, please, to the BPF executive in London and in Edinburgh, to the BPF Futures Advisory Board, led by Harbin Chauhan, who also sits on the main board, for the way in which they have driven the agenda for our Young in Service colleagues this year. I'd also like to thank my colleagues on the board and the policy committee, and particularly to Guy, with whom I've worked very closely for the last 2 years, and who has nobly agreed to continue to have the honor of chairing the policy committee for an extra 6 months before he becomes your president in January. And finally, I'd like to give a huge thank you to all those members who give up so much of your time to chair and to take part in our technical committees, which is the true core of the BPF. As I said, it's been a difficult 18 months. We are now, I'm sure, at the end of the tunnel, and I look forward to emerging into that light with all of you. Thank you very much. And I especially look forward to meeting in person as soon as we possibly can. Thank you. And that concludes the formal elements of the AGM. Hopefully we can all go now and retire to enjoy a glass of something on our own if we can't do it together, but we'll be thinking of you. Thank you very much indeed.